Control over enslaved women in ancient Egypt was not occasional. It was continuous. It existed inside routine. Inside noble households, enslaved women lived under constant observation. Domestic space was not private. It was administrative. Every room functioned as a site of supervision. Kitchens, storerooms, sleeping quarters. Movement was visible. Work was monitored. Mistresses assigned tasks daily. Overseers enforced discipline quietly. Other enslaved people were encouraged to report deviations. This created internal surveillance. No guard was necessary when observation was permanent. Isolation reinforced dependence. Enslaved women rarely interacted with free society. Markets were distant, public rituals inaccessible. Their world was limited to walls and courtyards. Language faded, memory softened, origin became irrelevant. Control relied on repetition. Daily routine replaced constant force. Wake, work, serve, sleep. Deviation was immediately noticed. Punishment did not require explanation. It was understood. Food distribution was adjusted first, rations reduced, beer limited, hunger enforced compliance. Work assignments changed next, heavier labor, longer hours, more visible tasks. Isolation followed, separation from other workers. Silence intensified obedience. Violence existed, but it was measured. Visible brutality disrupted order. Quiet correction preserved stability. Nobles understood this balance. Their power depended on productivity. An enslaved woman who survived was more useful than one destroyed. Fear was calibrated carefully, enough to prevent resistance, not enough to reduce output. Records confirm this logic. Papyrus documents list rations, work quotas, disciplinary notes. Women appear as entries, not as voices. Law reinforced domestic authority. Enslaved women could not challenge decisions. Their testimony had no legal weight. Disputes were resolved through ownership. Control appeared legitimate. Religion reinforced obedience. Daily rituals emphasized order. Mot governed behavior. Disobedience threatened balance. Punishment was framed as restoration, not cruelty. Sexual control was normalized, not documented openly, assumed. Law offered no protection. Ownership included bodily access. Children born inherited status. The system renewed itself. Domestic control ensured continuity. There were no public debates, no moral discussion. Silence protected authority. Witnesses were limited. Accountability did not exist. Control was personal, routine, invisible. That invisibility made it effective. Day after day, year after year, without interruption. This was daily life for enslaved women, not marked by spectacle, marked by repetition, by surveillance, by absence of escape, by acceptance imposed slowly. This was how Egyptian power operated inside homes, quietly, efficiently, without challenge. In ancient Egypt, law did not protect enslaved women. It defined their absence from protection. Legal systems existed to formalize ownership, not to limit it. An enslaved woman was not recognized as a legal subject. She could not bring complaint. She could not testify. Her voice had no standing. All disputes involving her were resolved through her owner. This removed accountability. Control was embedded in law itself. Property rights extended over labor, movement, and body. This was not debated. It was assumed. Papyrus records show transactions. Women were transferred with land, inherited with estates, assigned to temples or households. These records list age, health, and labor capacity, not consent, not condition. Ownership was absolute within the system. Marriage provided no protection. Enslaved women could be paired without approval. Relationships existed only at the discretion of owners. Children born inherited status through the mother. This legal rule ensured continuity of bondage. The system reproduced itself automatically. Escape offered no legal remedy. A runaway was not seeking freedom. She was reclaiming property. Return was mandatory. Punishment followed quietly. Examples were made privately. Public spectacle was unnecessary. Fear traveled through rumor. Silence carried warning. Even free women were affected. The presence of enslaved women reshaped gender hierarchy. Noble women enforced discipline. Mistresses supervised labor, assigned punishment, delivered correction. Power was delegated downward. Responsibility diffused. No single figure appeared cruel. The system appeared normal. Religion reinforced legality. Priests recorded ownership. Temples controlled labor. Ritual did not challenge law. It sanctified it. Ma'at framed obedience as virtue, resistance as disorder. This belief justified control. Daily enforcement required no explanation. Everyone understood boundaries. Enslaved women existed within this structure from childhood. Identity never formed outside ownership. Language, memory, and origin faded. Control deepened over time. Aging brought no relief, only reassignment. Manumission existed in theory, rarely in practice. Granted late, often symbolic. Former enslaved women carried stigma. Rights remained limited. Protection absent. The system did not offer restoration. It offered containment. Law did not correct injustice. It organized it. This absence of protection was not accidental. It was structural, by design. This is how Egyptian power endured, through law that erased voice, through ownership that required no defense, through silence that stabilized control. In ancient Egypt, law did not protect enslaved women. It defined the limits of their existence. Legal systems were designed to formalize ownership, not to restrain it. An enslaved woman was not recognized as a legal subject. She could not initiate complaint. She could not testify independently. Her voice carried no authority. All disputes involving her were resolved through her owner. This removed accountability. Control was embedded directly into law. Ownership extended over labor, over movement, over identity, and over the body. This arrangement was not questioned. It was assumed. Papyrus records document transactions. Women transferred with land, inherited with estates, assigned to temples, reallocated to noble households. These records noted age, health, work capacity. They did not record consent. They did not record suffering. Ownership was total within the system. Marriage provided no legal protection. Enslaved women could be paired at the discretion of owners. Relationships existed only by permission. Children born inherited status through the mother. This ensured continuity of bondage. The system reproduced itself automatically. Escape offered no legal relief. A runaway was not seeking freedom. She was reclaiming property. Return was mandatory. Punishment followed quietly. Examples were made privately. Public spectacle was unnecessary. Fear traveled through rumor. Silence carried warning. Even free women were shaped by this structure. The presence of enslaved women reinforced hierarchy. Noble women enforced discipline. Mistresses supervised labor, assigned correction, delivered punishment. Power was delegated downward. Responsibility diffused. No single figure appeared cruel. The system appeared normal. Religion reinforced legality. Priests recorded ownership. Temples controlled labor. Ritual did not challenge law. It sanctified it. Ma'at framed obedience as virtue, resistance as disorder. This belief justified control. Daily enforcement required no explanation. Everyone understood boundaries. Enslaved women existed within this structure from childhood. Identity never formed outside ownership. Language faded. Memory softened. Origin became irrelevant. Control deepened over time. Aging brought no relief, only reassignment. Manumission existed in theory, rare in practice, often granted late, frequently symbolic. Former enslaved women carried stigma. Rights remained limited, protection absent. The system did not restore, it contained. Law did not correct injustice, it organized it. This absence of protection was deliberate, structural, by design. This is how Egyptian power endured, through law that erased voice, through ownership that required no defense, through silence that stabilized control. Control in ancient Egypt did not end with the individual. It extended through bloodlines. Enslaved women were central to this process. Their reproductive capacity was regulated, not through formal law, through ownership. Marriage for enslaved women was not a personal choice, it was an administrative decision. Pairings were arranged by owners, based on labor needs, based on household stability. Consent was irrelevant. Children born to enslaved women inherited status through the mother. This rule ensured continuity. Bondage reproduced itself, generation after generation. The system did not need expansion. It sustained itself internally. Pregnancy did not reduce control. Labor continued as long as possible. Tasks were adjusted, but supervision remained constant. Children born enslaved were absorbed immediately. Some assigned to households, some transferred, some sold. Maternal bonds were not recognized legally. Separation was routine. Emotional attachment carried no protection. This discouraged resistance. Loss was normalized early. Families were fragmented deliberately. Without lineage, identity weakened. Without continuity, memory faded. Women aged inside the same structures. Roles shifted. Younger women replaced older ones. Freedom did not arrive with age, only reassignment. Elder enslaved women often cared for children, training the next generation, passing obedience through example, not instruction. This was efficient. Children learned limits without explanation. They observed routine. They absorbed silence. Gender hierarchy reinforced control. Enslaved women occupied the lowest position. Free women stood above them. Noble women enforced boundaries. They supervised labor, delivered discipline, maintained order. This delegation diffused responsibility. Power appeared distant, impersonal, unavoidable. Conflict between women was encouraged. Comparison, competition, favor. This reduced solidarity. Isolation deepened. Religion reinforced generational control. Birth rituals acknowledged status, not personhood. Names were assigned without lineage. Identity began and ended within ownership. Education emphasized obedience, not aspiration. Stories of resistance were absent. History was filtered. The system normalized this reality. Children born enslaved never experienced an alternative. By adulthood, control felt natural. Questioning felt dangerous. Generational repetition stabilized the structure. No enforcement surge was required. No visible cruelty, just continuity. This was power functioning over time, quietly, relentlessly, without interruption. The system did not rely on fear alone. It relied on inheritance, of status, of silence, of limitation. This ensured Egyptian power endured beyond individuals, beyond lifetimes, beyond memory. By this stage, control no longer felt imposed. It felt normal. That was its final form. In ancient Egypt, power did not rely on constant enforcement. It relied on acceptance. Acceptance developed slowly, through routine, through repetition, through silence. Enslaved women lived within structures that no longer needed explanation. The system explained itself through daily life. Work began before sunrise. Tasks followed familiar patterns. Supervision was constant but unremarkable. Correction was expected. Resistance was unthinkable. Not because it was impossible, because it felt irrelevant. Institutions absorbed control permanently. Noble households operated predictably. Temples followed established order. Administrators recorded outcomes. No debate followed. Law was not questioned. It was applied. This application shaped memory. What was written mattered. What was not written disappeared. Enslaved women rarely appeared in historical records as individuals. They appeared as quantities, as labor units, as reproductive assets. Absence became the dominant condition. Silence replaced testimony. Over time, this silence shaped perception. What was unseen was not considered. What was not considered did not exist. This logic extended beyond slavery. It defined social hierarchy. Power was invisible but present everywhere. People adjusted behavior instinctively. Speech was measured, association calculated, movement restricted, without force. Children born into the system learned compliance early, not through instruction, through observation. They saw limits. They absorbed routine. They learned what not to ask. Generations passed without disruption. Control became inherited knowledge. Enslaved women aged within the same structures. Roles changed. Status did not. Freedom was not anticipated. It was not imagined. Imagination itself was constrained. Manumission existed only as exception, rare, late, often symbolic. Former enslaved women remained marginalized. Protection remained absent. Social memory followed them. They were never fully integrated. This reinforced caution among others. Hope was discouraged structurally. The state did not need terror, it needed predictability. Predictability stabilized authority. Authority preserved order. Order justified control. This cycle sustained itself, without visible cruelty, without constant violence, without interruption. Egyptian power endured because it became ordinary, unquestioned, expected. Ritual reinforced acceptance. Religion sanctified order. Hierarchy appeared natural. Disobedience appeared abnormal. This framing discouraged resistance more effectively than punishment. Enslaved women disappeared within this structure, not through death, through erasure. They lived, worked, aged, and were forgotten. History preserved monuments, it preserved rulers, it preserved victories. It did not preserve these lives. That silence was intentional. The system did not require acknowledgement. Acknowledgement created disruption. Silence created continuity. This was the final function of control, to remove presence from memory, to normalize absence, to ensure stability. Egyptian power structures did not need to destroy enslaved women. They needed them compliant, invisible, replaceable. The system worked because it endured, quietly, across generations, without challenge. Silence. By the end, the system no longer appeared oppressive. It appeared inevitable. That was its greatest achievement. Ancient Egyptian power did not rely on constant reminders. It relied on time. Time normalized everything. What began as control became routine. Routine became expectation. Expectation became culture. Enslaved women existed inside this culture without reference to alternatives. There was no contrasting memory, no competing narrative, only continuity. Institutions preserved this continuity carefully. Noble households trained servants in obedience. Temples reinforced hierarchy through ritual. Administrators recorded outcomes, not experiences. Records defined reality. If something was not recorded, it did not exist. Enslaved women rarely appeared as individuals. They appeared as numbers, as allocations, as labor units, as reproductive capacity. This abstraction removed empathy. Abstraction stabilized authority. Over decades, this system shaped perception. People did not ask whether it was just, they asked whether it was orderly. Order replaced morality. Morality became irrelevant. Children born into the system inherited silence. They learned limits before language. They observed routine before questioning. They absorbed hierarchy as natural law. By adulthood, compliance felt normal. Resistance felt irrational. Even free populations internalized these limits. They adjusted speech. They calculated association. They avoided unnecessary attention. Power shaped behavior without force. That was efficiency. Enslaved women aged inside the same structures. Youth passed. Roles changed. Control remained. Freedom was not anticipated. It was not imagined. Imagination itself had boundaries. Occasional manumission did not disrupt this. It reinforced it. Exception proved rule. Late freedom carried stigma. Former enslaved women remained marginal. Protection remained absent. Integration incomplete. This discouraged hope among others. Hope destabilized systems. Egyptian power avoided instability. The system did not need executions. It did not need spectacle. It needed predictability. Predictability produced obedience. Obedience preserved continuity. Continuity sustained authority. This method outlived individuals. It outlived dynasties. It survived political change because it was embedded, quiet, administrative, normalized. History reflects this silence. Monuments endure. Names of rulers survive. Lives beneath them disappear. Not accidentally, intentionally. Silence was engineered. Records omitted experience. Narratives excluded suffering. What remained appeared stable, orderly, successful. That appearance mattered more than truth. Power requires legitimacy. Legitimacy requires acceptance. Acceptance requires silence. This was the final mechanism. Not punishment, not fear, but erasure from memory. Enslaved women were not destroyed. They were absorbed, contained, forgotten. Their labor built wealth. Their bodies sustained households. Their absence preserved order. Egyptian power structures endured because they removed disruption. They removed voice. They removed record. They removed consequence. What remained was control, stable, unquestioned, routine. This was the legacy of the system, not cruelty alone, but permanence. Time completed what law began. Silence preserved what violence could not, and the system continued. By the final stage, control no longer appeared deliberate. It appeared natural. That transformation was the system's greatest success. Ancient Egyptian power did not depend on constant enforcement. It depended on routine. Routine shaped behavior. Behavior shaped expectation. Expectation shaped culture. Over time, enslaved women existed inside this culture without reference to alternatives. There was no competing memory, no visible contrast, only continuity. Daily life reinforced this absence. Work began before sunrise. Tasks followed familiar patterns. Supervision was present, but unremarkable. Correction was expected. Nothing felt exceptional. That was the final condition of control. Control no longer looked like force. It looked like order. Order did not provoke resistance. It invited acceptance. Institutions absorbed this logic completely. Noble households operated predictably. Temples reinforced hierarchy through ritual. Administrators recorded outcomes, not experience. Records defined reality. If something was not recorded, it did not exist. Enslaved women appeared in documents as labor units, as allocations, as reproductive capacity. They did not appear as individuals. This abstraction removed empathy. Abstraction stabilized authority. Over decades, perception changed. People no longer asked whether the system was just. They asked whether it was orderly. Order replaced morality. Morality became irrelevant. Children born into this environment inherited silence. They learned limits before language. They absorbed routine before questioning. They recognized boundaries instinctively. By adulthood, compliance felt normal. Resistance felt irrational. Even free populations internalized these limits. Speech became measured. Association became calculated. Presence became strategic. Power shaped behavior without visible force. That efficiency ensured longevity. Enslaved women aged inside the same structures. Youth passed. Roles shifted. Control remained constant. Freedom was not anticipated. It was not imagined. Imagination itself had boundaries. Occasional manumission did not disrupt this. It reinforced it. Exception